Hey, everybody, and welcome to what is hopefully the first of many talks about this subject matter. I guess I'm going to call it getting vocal, and we're going to talk with our buddy FRAGABOOM here about what it takes to be a voiceover actor.
Yeah.
Directors are looking for what you need to do in terms of putting together your voice role, your reel, and what to do to be a professional. So, and we've got our friend Shay here hanging out because I know she's got questions just like I do. And she's actually part of the reason why I decided to do this is because she and I were talking about, cartoons and voiceover, and she's been getting asked to do voiceover and stuff like that. So I figure this is kind of a pertinent topic to bring up.
Yeah.
And since you know all about this stuff, being that you did this,
I could go through it linearly if you want. And I'm talking about like, hey, the idea of, hey, I think it would be cool to do some voice acting, right? From that to actually being in the booth. Okay, I'll take you through it, and I'll tell you also different facets of it. So, and I'll say this. I'm going to preface it with this. I worked as a voice director for 5.5 years for Mattel and MTV. I did stuff for them for Hard Times at RJ Berger. For Mattel, I voice directed Hot Wheels, Monster High, Ever After High, Polly Pocket, and Max Steel. So I've worked with different genres, different age groups. I've also worked alongside of a lot of voice directors, like Renee over at Verite, Audu Payton, some of the best in the business. Renee did all the Elder Scrolls stuff, so he knows his stuff. And I have a lot of really good friends that that's their profession, guys like Josh Keaton, who's the voice of Spider-Man on Spectacular Spider-Man, the Green Lantern, Ant-Man, and Shiro on Voltron. So not only does my expertise happen from being on the director side, I also hear a lot of stuff from the talent themselves, and also working with the talent and hearing wants and needs and the differences. So I'm going to preface it with that. So basically, if you have the idea of, hey, I want to do voiceover, there's a lot of different places where your work can show up. And I'm going to use my buddy Josh as an example. This is the funny part was back in 2008, he was not only the voice of Peter Parker and Spider-Man on Spectacular Spider-Man, but he was also the voice of McDonald's McCafe for all their radio stuff. And he was also the voice of XM Radio and the transition guy for Access Hollywood. Next up on Access Hollywood, the guy that does that.
right?
So he was doing all of those things, right? So he was doing food, he was doing product, he was doing promo, and he was doing an acting voice, an actual voice. That's Josh right there.
Yep.
That's him. That's my homie.
Nice.
I've known him for 20 years. I married him and his wife. I was their officiant. That's my dude.
Awesome.
Yeah, super talented guy. So let's say you have this idea in your head. I want to become a voice actor. You want to decide where, doing what. Do you want to just do commercials? Do you want to be the Ford truck guy?
Right.
Do you want to be the movie trailer guy?
Yeah.
Do you want to do voices on video games, or do you want to be like Josh and do it all? Because he was also in Metal Gear. I forget which one he was. He was one of the voices in Metal Gear as well. So he did a lot of video game stuff, and also in Elder Scrolls. So you have to decide what you want to do, and obviously practice. Look at people that are doing it. Listen to them. Close your eyes and listen. Understand what's happening while it's happening in that genre and practice. Once you feel like you've practiced enough, you want to get together and put together a reel. You can do it yourself, but I would definitely rely on experts And there are services that actually help you put together a reel and will be there to record you and get the best take out of you for the thing you're going for. And you want your reel to represent the things, the jobs you want, right? Like don't do cartoon voices if you don't want to do cartoons, you know?
Right.
But if you want to be a utility like Josh, where you do it all, you want to have a reel that has car stuff, food stuff, promo stuff, video game character stuff, types of cartoons, because there's a difference between Paw Patrol and Avatar.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a cadence and a way of talking. Hey kids, da 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 da. Like there's a cadence to the way preschooler shows go versus Avatar, which is slow and deliberate. Like there's styles, right? So you want to have your reel that represents that stuff, and then you want to go get representation, because you're not going to get hired as a freelancer without an agent. And there's one called DPN.
Okay.
And there's just agencies. So you want to have your reel to present to them, because what ends up happening is, I'll just take you through the Mattel thing, because it was my job also to review auditions and cast people. So here's one of the things that people that they have to understand when they do something for an audition, and it's just like any other acting. You may do the best performance of your life on your audition and not get the thing, and it has nothing to do with the quality of your performance. It has everything to do with how your performance fits in the ensemble, right? So like when we did Monster High, we had a character represent Draculaura, which was a personality type and a sound signature. We had someone who was Frankie Stein, who was another one. But if you get, let's say you get 4 girls that are the most epic performance artists, but their voice frequencies and their cadences are close enough, you're not going to tell who's talking. You know what I'm saying? You have to think of it like cooking, you know? Like Draculaura was a higher pitch, very staccato voice. Frankie was very dynamic. You know, Claudia was laid back and talked like this. You know, Abby was she was Russian and she was very robotic like this. That's another friend of mine, Erin Fitzgerald. She's got huge range. She was several voices on Monster High because she could also change them up. So if you don't get it, it's not because your performance is bad. It may just be that there may have been decisions made about other characters, and the character you're auditioning for it just doesn't jibe with the other ones.
Right.
So that's something to take. That's Erin right there. Yeah, Erin's great. She is phenomenal. You could see by there's that picture there with all the pictures behind her. Those are all the different voices she does. She does guys, girls. See that character in the lower. If you go back to the other image, there was a couple of those characters I voice directed her on. The one that says Erin Fitzgerald with just the characters. That one, yeah. So that the girl on the lower left, that's a Raven Queen. The girl to the right of her, that's Cupid. Abby's in there, the blue girl. That's Abby. That's the one that looked like this. She's also that purple trash can looking thing. That's from Storybots, which is like a totally different vibe. Erin's one of those actors that is all over and amazing. You know,
I think I recognize these two from Ed, and Eddie.
Yep,
right here.
That's her.
Wow.
Yeah.
So she's been doing this for a very long time. Then.
She's been around a long time. Also, a lot of the time when it comes to kid voices, we like male kids.
Yeah.
We hire women.
Right.
Like not kids, like women that can go and hide a register like this and throw a little grit in it. You know, like they throw a little grit, like you know, Bart Simpson's a woman. You know what I'm saying? Like that sort of thing. So then the other thing is, let's say you get the job, read your script, understand the concept and have a point of view with the character. And if you want to have a discussion with your director, have that discussion.
Right.
One of the most surprising things that I learned as a voice director that I wasn't even ready for was that you could get an Oscar-winning actor
Right.
in the sound booth, and they are horrible voice actors, right? Like you could say, read the line, and it's like, I'm going to tear your head off. And then you go, actually, I need a little more intense. And then they furrow their brows and they go, I'm going to tear your head off. And it's literally the same read. Their face changed, right? And you're like, no, you have to understand that voice acting, you have to know your pauses. You have to know your breathing. You have to be able to convey emotion with sound only.
Yeah.
And you have to create a character with sound only. You can't, a lot of times your physicality in the booth, and this really happens, your physicality in the booth betrays the performance if someone was to film it. Like if you ever watch someone like Mark Hamill do the Joker,
yes,
the performance on the animation is him going, and he's very straight. But Mark Hamill in the booth is going,
yeah,
right? He's moving around because it helps him get that thing out of him.
Because it's acting. You
It's
have to act with your whole body.
And voice acting is exaggeration, right?
Yeah.
Right.
The other thing too, like especially with new actors, is like Han Solo said, "Don't get cocky, kid."
Right.
I've had Aaron, and again, Aaron's my friend, and I've had a voice director, and she was in 3 of my shows. She was in Polly Pocket, she was in Ever After High, and she was in Monster High. I made the mistake, because some actors don't like this, of line reading, right? And line reading is basically where you tell them how you want the line by performing the line yourself. Some voice actors don't like it, and they get angry about it. But then there are some actors that actually need that, right? I made the mistake of line reading Aaron once, and she's like, "Don't ever do that again." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And she could talk to me that way, and I totally allowed her to talk to me that way, because again, as you could tell by her resume, she you don't tell Marlon Brando how to act. You know what I'm saying? Like, but this is the thing, as a voice director,
right?
You're minding all kinds of things, right? I had the luxury on Polly Pocket to have all 5 girls in the room at the same time with 5 mics. So they were ensembling and like kind of riffing off each other. That is very uncommon. Most of the time you have, a 12-hour day, you have so-and-so actor A for 2 hours. You have actor B for 2 hours. You have actor C for 2 hours. You break for lunch, you come back, and you're on a clock. Okay, you're paying for every minute, because you're paying for the engineer, you're paying for everything, right?
Right.
So you have to, as the director, you may be reading a scene that actor A read this part, but then you're at 12 noon, and at 8 p.m. you have the other side of that conversation coming in. Or if it's a 3-day record, that person may be 2 days from now. So you have to keep, as a director, you have to keep the desired performance in your head. So as they're reading, you know what you're wanting that reply to sound like. Or when you have a reply, sometimes you get the reply person coming in first. You have to know what the question was, or at least the dynamic of the conversation. Right. So as you're watching the clock, and you're mining for gold, basically, if that actor's not getting it, and they could be doing something right, but they're not quite hitting it, or you have these things, what we call technicals, that we go, oh, you got a little saliva. Like you'll hear people smack, like even on live streams, you'll hear people go, well, and like we don't want that, right? So we go, hey, technical, let's do that over. But when they're not getting the read, and you're looking at the clock and you're 5 minutes over, and the next actor who has another gig and you only have them for a half hour because they only had 4 lines, and now you have them for 5 minutes. You line read the person. You're like, no, I need it like this. Da 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 da. Okay, like, and because you're watching the clock as well.
Did you ever have to? Did you ever have to read the lines, like you were saying, the reply? Would you ever have to read the line that set it up? So have the conversation.
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes, yeah.
Would that help get the line out the way you need it? Like, if you need the energy forward, does it kind of pull it out of the?
There's many techniques. That's one of them. Another one, and it's what Aaron likes, is director to actor. Okay, right. You're upset that your friend is, buying those shoes, but the subtext is those shoes are the favorite color of the guy you want to take out tonight. Mm-hmm. And there's a desperation in your anger. So it's not just anger, right? Like that's what you have to, but that's if you have the luxury of time. Sure. Sometimes if you're over the clock, you're like, it's like this, but I wanted those shoes. Yeah. Right? That's how you want it.
Right. Creativity on a crunch, man. It's always a difficult balance.
Yeah.
It's a difficult balance.
But yeah, there's many techniques, but that's why I say to any of my actors, read your script, understand things. Otherwise, like time-wise, and like Mattel, even though they're this super corporation, they're always working on a budget. So, for every hour we buy, we need 2. So we're already crunched by the time we get into the studio.
Mm-hmm. Right. I didn't realize that it was so rare to have like the people, because you watch the behind the scenes stuff for like Futurama and whatnot, and you've got the cast there, and you got John DiMaggio, gesticulating about and whatnot, and you see them all in the same room. And I always assumed that that's how they tried to do it all the time.
Well,
but I guess the scheduling is
a lot of that stuff is clever editing too. It's not. They'll show from one side and they'll show 2 people, and those 2 people were in the room, but the rest of the cast wasn't there. And then they turn to the other side and shoot it at a different angle, but it's the same damn room. They just hit it at different angles and different viewpoints. And so for the audience, it's the whole cast is always together every second of the day, and they all riff off each other. In reality, it's I high-fived him on my way out, and I didn't see him for 3 weeks.
Right.
And that's just coming from a production standpoint.
Or they scheduled a BTS day, right? They go, hey, we're doing behind the scenes stuff. We would appreciate it if you guys could all be here.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. Like Josh, it wasn't just like, hey, I'm going to go do this. They're like 5 or 6 in Burbank, 5 or 6 studios that record. You got Salami, you got Atomic, now it's been so long, I'm like forgetting them. But there's a bunch that they record at. They go, okay, I've got, Ant-Man at 4:00 from 4 to 6, but then I have to be at 6:30, I have to be, 5 miles away to do this next one. So trying to get all of those schedules to line up, like, they can't all 5 be there because so-and-so is doing a Wrigley's gum commercial at that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and so something I think is really funny, like the only experience that I had from like more Dan's perspective is when I was doing video editing, I filmed our seniors play. And unfortunately for me, it was in the amphitheater. Nobody was mic'd. And I had really shitty handhelds. So I had to get audio off of 5 different cameras at 5 different points. So there was 2 in the back. There was 2 that were stationary up in the front. And there was 1 that I was on where I was moving to get shots. And being in a tiny amphitheater with horrible acoustics, the reverb was so bad you couldn't hear what anyone was saying. So
I would have taken the audio from the closest camera.
It was okay, but the problem was because I was moving and I was the closest camera, there was a lot of shuffling. Anytime the actors would walk, you would hear their shoes on the stage and everything. It was a nightmare. And this is their senior play, so this is like their big deal. So I ended up contacting all of them, and I was like, all right, so we have to reshoot this, but I need all of you to remain stationary in a chair, but I need you to act like you did. And they were like, were like, how? And I was like, and they go, so where are we doing this? I was like, we're doing it in the amphitheater because that's where everything is. And I have to use some of that audio. If we don't do it in the amphitheater with some of that reverb, it's going to sound terrible when I cut to the camera all the way in the back, because that's the only time that I could get that fucking shot.
Yeah.
And the audio is going to be echoey, and then it's going to be crystal clear again. It's going to be horrible. And so they were like, okay, we could do this. We could do this. And I had the amount of times that you're sitting there like, I see why they do it one-on-one, because if it was one-on-one, it probably would have been slightly easier than having 5 of them around, because while one is doing and you're pointing the mic so you can get that one. This dude over here realized that he's uncomfortable in his chair and he slides, and you're like, dude.
Like herding cats, I imagine.
Yeah, and so you're just sitting here, you're like, nobody breathe. And you're just like, go for your line. And then the next person tries to cut in, and you're like, oh, okay, so you didn't do it that way all 3 nights that I filmed. So I'm going to need you to sound like you cut in, but don't actually cut in. And I'm going to stack the audio if you did cut in on the scene that I used. It was a complete nightmare. I had 5 minutes left of a 2-hour play to edit, and somebody started recording over, because it was on mini DVR. So people started recording over my beginning, and I went, that's it, I'm out, I quit. Like, I spent my summer doing this, I'm done.
Holy shit.
It was horrendous.
That's how you get your stress levels, like work your stress levels up, and then now you have a new base standard. You're like, like anytime you've ever been stressed out, you're like, it ain't high school play stressful.
Exactly. I had a new benchmark. I was like, this ain't nothing. You didn't record over, 4 months of work. 3 of those were my summer vacation.
Oh this is why you always back up everything.
Well, so that's the problem, is when you're working in a public school.
Sure.
Your backup was, these DVRs are not for use, and you put them on a shelf, and then someone else goes, well, I can't find any other DVRs, and she's had those ones for a while. And then he just plucked and recorded, and I was like, you just recorded over 40 minutes. I hate you. Don't ever talk to me again. Like, I will hit you with my car the next time I see you in the parking lot, so you better run.
Hit you with a car.
Ever After Highway to Wonderland. You were, and you did a voice in that one.
It was one of the cards. I was a card.
Club's security guard. Yeah.
I was a voice on a few things.
Oh well, IMDb is lacking then, because this is all they have you as an actor.
Yeah, they didn't. That was the thing with Mattel, is Mattel was updating all of our stuff. So a lot of the stuff I directed, a lot of the stuff I voiced, I didn't go in there. Like I was in Polly Pocket. I did a lot of like the B characters. Like there was a sandcastle episode where it's like the best sandcastle contest,
right?
And I was the voice of the sandcastle judge. Not bad, I'd say, oh, but you were past the buzzer. Like that kind of thing. And then a lot of work I did at Mattel when uncredited. Like there's a Monster High, Boo York, Boo York. I wrote all of the raps for the rapping character. I did not get a stick of credit for that. Of course, I got supervising director, but the way Mattel saw it was, as supervising director, you're supposed to do everything it takes to make sure that this thing gets put together.
That's garbage.
If you have to write songs, if you have to design characters, if you have and I have Ever After High, was it not Way to Wonderland, the winter one. I designed the villains, Jackie Frost and Northwind, and I didn't. No extra money, no extra credit, nothing. That's they go, that your job is this umbrella that covers the things you're good at, and that's how it went.
See, that's one of the bad things when you're salaried too. Like anytime and people are like, oh man, salaried is cush, and you're like, usually salaried is in favor of whatever company is paying you,
right?
Because the military is salaried. If they paid me hourly with all of the stuff that they have me doing, I'd be making about $2 to $3 an hour.
Yeah.
Because they give me that much stuff, and like that's one of the problems, and I've seen it a lot in entertainment too, because there's so much to do.
Right.
So much to do and so much money to make on the other side. You know, that's
that
what they
most
do.
of the time the people doing all the work are not the ones that are going to see that payout. It's going to be the main company.
Exactly. when you look at like a movie like Jungle Book and how much money it made and all this stuff, but then you find out like the effects companies that did the effects, all of them went out of business because like the way, and this is how it works in anything. Like even at Mattel, when we were having production companies bid out to get the jobs, you know, hey, you wanted the Monster High thing? Okay, cool. You do a presentation, and then there's the presentation weighed against the bid, and those bids, when they low bid like that, they're doing it to get the job. But then there's things written in there like if you have overtime, you're going to be responsible for it. And then when it comes time, they ask for, you know, 10 things to do in the time it takes to do 4. And then the company ends up paying all this overtime to do this beautiful work for the company, and then they go out of business because but they can't even get the deal without leveraging themselves. And by leveraging themselves, they get the job, but then put themselves out of business.
It's the same thing with government contracting. It's the exact same problem, because
insane.
You try to underbid the person that is the most favored for the contract, but then you can't afford to pay your employees what you need to pay them, and then they all quit, which means that now you can't do the job that you said that you were going to do because you don't have the manpower and you can't afford to hire new people and train them. And
then in the art field, the production companies do the sneak, right? What they do is they present their A team, and then when they get the gig, they hire their C team.
Yes,
and
because they're cheaper.
Because they're cheaper, and that's how they make their money.
They're cheaper, and usually your A team is already obligated for something that you're like, we have to do the A team because there's going to be another 4 contracts, and if we don't do the A team for the first one, we're not going to get the other 4. But if we do the A team, we can do a bulk sign, get the next 3, and then we can switch to C team. Because now we're committed into the contract, so they can't just terminate.
Or the old subcontract, right? Yeah. Like we would hire a company. We would hire a company to do the work, and then they would send 2/3 of the scenes to the Philippines because the Philippines would do it mad cheaper, right? And then they would have their guys do any corrections. So that's how they would end up getting those margins. So yeah, it's crazy, like the whole animation thing, the whole production thing. But we're talking about voices, right?
Yeah.
So that's sort of the nutshell of it, you know. And just
people to understand the business side of it, like you were just explaining, so they know kind of what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the behind the scenes, what they do is there's usually every time an actor comes in, they come in with their script and they're prepared, and when they leave, they sign. They sign a release and also sort of an invoice, a voucher that gets paid to their agency, and then the agency pays them.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, better than having to send out checks. You know.
Yeah.
And I guess that's also another reason why you would want to have an agency, so they make sure that proper percentages and all that stuff.
Well, they also know they're stable too. They know they're stable, and they want it because they take a percentage. They make money off of their people working. Right. So if we say, hey, we've got this character who's the daughter of Robin Hood, and she's got to be a little kind of a John Cleese type, but with a little grunge in her voice. Who do you got that can pull that off? And then they'll send like 4 auditions of that. Do you know what I mean? From 4 different actors.
Right.
And then, that person gets it, and, you get them in the room, and then you get them going.
Okay. Yeah. So you almost have to have an agent, like you said.
Because how are you going to find the jobs? There's no like want ads, like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, but in the beginning, let's say you can't get an agent.
Sure.
The stuff that there are want ads for are people that aren't necessarily big production companies that are like if you and I were going to make a cartoon, right?
It's like Fiverr.
Yeah, exactly. But that's a good place for up and coming VO people to cut their teeth. And part of your thing, because you may not get paid as much, but you can say things like, hey, make sure I get a clip for my reel, and that way you have a reel that's workable that then you can submit, like what I gave was the clean path. I want to be a VO person. I shot a reel. I got an agent. But there's all of the trip ups in between, right? Like getting the right reel company and not wasting your money and making sure your reel is exactly what you want it to be. And then if you can't get an agent, then kind of cutting your teeth in the smaller stuff. And then once, sort of like gradations going along the way. Right.
I think that having somebody to actually be listening and help you get the best take is also a crucial thing, because it's like editing your own stuff. Like you're in the forest, so you can't see the trees, as it were. You're in the trees, can't see the forest. So I don't know. Maybe you can't tell. Am I echoing again?
No,
yeah.
I didn't hear an echo.
Okay.
But the other thing too, and this is what I did when I was coming up, there's a thing called role modeling, right? It's where you find someone, like if you wanted to do VO, Luke, I would say the person that you could probably role model off of is someone like Clancy Brown. But you had your tone is in that place, right?
Okay.
And I would go and I would check out his performances and just kind of go, what's he doing? And it's like anybody that you can actually like research them and study them, and like I said, you want to what are they doing it? How are they doing it? Why are they doing it? Right?
Much like you'd research an artist looking at their technique.
100%. Yeah. So get to know who voice actors are. I mean, obviously there's the big ones, Frank Welker, dude. Yeah. I got to hang out with him.
You did not.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, dude. That's the thing. When I would go into Salami, which is the recording studio that we did most of our stuff at Mattel.
Yeah.
They don't just have one recording booth. They've got like 8, and they've got 4 mix rooms. So there's 5 different shows or video games recording at the same time. Right. So you may have, and this is absolutely a real situation. Elder Scrolls is in that room. Scooby-Doo is in that room. Green Lantern's in that room. Monster High is in this room. So when we break for lunch, there's Welker right there. There's DiMaggio right there. There's Josh Keaton right there. There's Tara Strong right there. You know what I mean? Like that's how it is.
That's fucking exciting.
Yeah, it's crazy. That happens in recording studios too.
I used to drive my ex nuts picking out voices from cartoons. Be like, I'd close my eyes and I'd listen to the character talking. Be like, oh, that's blah 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 from this show, and she'd be like, yeah, can I just watch? Thanks. I'm just like, So I love picking out voices. Like Starscream was Cobra Commander, and
one of my actors, Cam Smith.
One of the original Ninja Turtles, right?
That's right, and he was also Kaneda in Akira, and but
he was also Liquid Snake in Metal Gear Solid.
That's right, and but he played our dorky dude in Monster High. So he played the guy that did like this sort of thing, but in other stuff he's like, hey man, but Cam is another one of those guys that is really diverse.
He's got a wide range.
Oh yeah.
I remember when I was playing Metal Gear Solid for the first time, I was like, this dude's voice sounds familiar. And then, I was thinking about it, and it came to me. It was Leonardo, and Michelangelo was the Tick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rob Paulson's actually doing the voice, or did the voice for Donatello in the 3D animated Ninja Turtles.
Well, that's cool.
He did most recently. Yeah.
I would have hired Corey Feldman.
Right?
Just for continuity, man, and give that guy some work.
Yeah, absolutely. Shay, do you have any questions? You've been kind of quiet for a second.
I have, yeah. No, I've been listening. So, I guess the only thing that I have is because it's so overwhelming when you want to try and do something like this. Like I tried modeling when I was 13. And I was told that I had to lose 20 pounds at 13 and then come back. And I said, I'm not doing that. I'm 13 years old. And then I tried acting.
20 pounds as a 13-year-old, you like weigh nothing anymore.
Well, so here's the fun thing is when I was first trying to get into modeling, it was before all of this body positivity kind of stuff. So I'm too tall for print. I'm too fat for runway. They're very specific. So everyone's like, yeah, you ever want to get into modeling? And I was like, nope, that's a toxic ass industry. Like that sounds horrible.
Yeah. And there are a lot of scams in that industry too. You had John Robert Powers.
Barbizon. 3K.
Nice.
3K. Yeah.
Exactly.
Rough.
Yeah.
Really bad.
Yeah.
My mom still doesn't quite forgive me for that.
No. That's why when I said, make sure when you get your VO reel done, make sure it's a reputable place. You don't want to go to a Barbizon of reels,
Well, and it's really easy because they're the ones that are going to headhunt. And like they're ready and I've got so much work for you. I just need you to give me $500 for your reel and then you're good. That's how I found out when it comes to modeling and acting. If somebody really is headhunting you, they're not going to ask you to pay for your own like comp cards, your own headshots. Like they will cover that because that's their investment in you, but they're going to have you sign a contract.
That's right.
If they come to you asking for money, they're probably a scam. But if they come to you with a contract to tie you down to them, they're probably not. That doesn't mean sign with them. That means be very careful with that contract because that could go horribly wrong. But my big thing was I tried acting, and I basically was told that I wasn't good. And so it's like how are you supposed to, I guess, kind of know, because I did it when I was 14 15 years old and very like
so like only like a couple years ago.
Right.
Now they have you can check out Masterclass, and there's tons of like that's the beauty of stuff that like I try to explain this. I was directing this pilot over at Adult Swim. And it was this really fun show called Rolling with Dad. And I had a storyboard artist come in, right? And she was born in 1990, right? So, well, that was the thing and she brought her portfolio in and she's like, yeah, I did this when I was 16. And I'm like, holy fuck, that's incredible. I couldn't even think like that when I was 16. I'm like, how'd you learn how to do that? Like, do you have a master teacher, And she's like, YouTube. I was like, what? And then I realized that like guys in my generation, guys and gals, anything pre-YouTube, we learned from books and videotapes. You know what I mean? Like I learned everything I could from How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, the Andrew Loomis book, the Bern Hogarth book, and that was literally the only resources. Now you can go on YouTube and watch a FRAGABOOM video or, watch a ZHC or watch a Dave Finch or watch whatever and be like, holy fuck, that just blew my mind. But you never would have got that, 20 years ago. So anybody that wants to do voice acting, there are so many resources out there. In fact, I just did a panel. I'm on one of the, San Diego Comic-Con is doing their virtual Comic-Con.
Yeah. I'm SDCAC at home. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm on one of the panels. Like you can watch it. You can watch it starting July 23rd. It was done by Digital LA, and it was talking to different creative people about what do you do as a creative individual now that the pandemic has happened? So I of course talked about crowdfunding and doing Black Flag. There was another gal who did like a Disney fan club. There was another guy who did like the coolest virtual screens in the, like, there are these giant screens that no matter how you move, the perspective will shift. It was like this incredible thing. But then Phil Lamar was also on the panel. And he was talking about, you know, the stuff he was doing, you know, and I remember him saying that he's done podcasts and, you know, done videos and things. And then what made me think of that is like, yeah, now, you know, 20 years ago, you want to do VO, you know, study. Now, definitely still study, but you can go on YouTube or the internet and hear Tara Strong talk about how she does what she does. You can go and hear Phil Lamar talk about, you know, how he does what he does. You know, I mean, come on, Samurai Jack, bro. I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
he's done so many great voices.
Yeah.
Not the least of which Hermes Conrad on Futurama.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, some good stuff.
What I was saying to Replicant in the chat there, Rob Paulson, you know, Pinky, the original Raphael, you know, he had a podcast for a while where he would talk to all of his friends in the voice acting world. And he did it for like 2 or 3 years. And I don't know if he stopped or if he moved over to like a paid network or something like that. But I stopped getting notifications about it. But it was fantastic.
But they're still out there, right? Like people can go hear them if they've never heard them. It's all new.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't remember what the name of it was now. It's been so long. But I mean, if you look up Rob Paulson podcast.
His name is Robert Paulson.
His name is Robert Paulson, exactly. I'm besieged by cats here.
You're lucky, man. I miss mine so much.
Yeah. They leave little imprints on the heart. Never thought about getting another one, man?
There's sort of a I can't have one mandate, you know.
Okay. Well, damn, dude, that sucks.
Yeah. Bree put a kibosh on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love a little orange cat, man. Those are my favorite. The tabbies are my favorite. Everyone, I mean, I had a cat named A Boy. Got him in '97. He lasted a long time. He made it all the way through 2015. So he 18 years. But that, like, he was such a good cat that people would say, "Man, I hate cats, but I like this one."
Right.
They'd say he's like a dog because he was super loyal, always wanted to hang out, never gave anybody shit, wasn't catty, quote unquote, you know. He wasn't like, he'd get up in your lap, but he wasn't like annoying. If you're like, not right now, he'd hop down, you know, not a clingy cat, like literally one of the boys. I miss that cat. I miss him so much. And he had an understudy named Mouse, and Mouse was born in 2009. But we used to live in California. We lived in Buena Park in a place called Coyote Estates, and it's called Coyote Estates for a reason. And the coyotes got him right before we moved. It was like, you know, like 4 months before we moved, he just was gone. And we lost like 4 cats in the span. Like we'd bring them in, but you know, they run out and you're like, and then they're gone.
It's a cat. You can't, you know.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I miss my orange cat big time.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about putting together a reel. We've talked about what it's like in the booth. What is your favorite experience in the cartoon or voiceover world? Like working with the actors or being an actor yourself? What's your favorite experience so far?
Learning from Audu Payton. Audu was my boss over at Mattel. I wouldn't even call him a boss, though. I would call him a mentor and a friend. Audu has got an incredible resume. He directed the Animaniacs, directed Pinky and the Brain, the Real Ghostbusters, Godzilla over at Sony. And then he was the showrunner on Monster High, Ever After High, Max Steel, Hot Wheels. And every single thing that I know about voice directing and voice acting, I learned from Audu. And watching him work and watching how he worked, I literally learned, like I shadowed him. I was basically his understudy. And that's him. He looks like fucking Zeus.
Yeah, he does.
And he sounds like Zeus and does a lot of voices. Like if you look at his IMDb, you'll just be like, whoa, fuck. But Audu, I worked with Audu every single day for almost 6 years, and I learned so much from him. Not just about cartoons and oh yeah, that's right, he did Leatherneck, Starship Troopers, but yeah, I mean, look at that list.
Yeah,
So as he's executive producer on all those Ever After High, Team Hot Wheels, Monster High, those are all the things that he and I worked on together, where I was his supervising director. Those are all the things that we did together. But my favorite experience is learning from him. And he's also, in addition to being an incredible artist, an incredible director, an incredible voice director, he's also an incredible voice actor. He goes in and does big roles, like big roles.
Yeah.
He has a very booming, authoritative voice. Like,
oh, he's stentorian, is he?
Yeah. And he like I said, he looks like a Greek god. Like, his visage. Like you can see old sculptures, and you're like, dude, that's you. Like, And he has one of the most interesting stories ever. He was born in England, raised in Africa. Whoa. Came over here to the States maybe at 9 or 10 years old, somewhere around there. Learned, all the other stuff. Has no accent. He totally sounds like an American, but like his stories are so good. And not only are his stories good, he has like all the photos to support it, because his dad is some sort of diplomat or some sort of guy that has that kind of travel stuff. So they had a lot of documentation. So, but he remains one of my good buddies. We still talk probably once a month.
That's awesome.
But yeah, he's my favorite thing. And then of course having Aaron tell me don't ever line read me again. Like, and then like I was like, oh shit, because like I'd already been working with her for like a year, and it was one of those days where I was watching the clock, and at the end I'm like, listen, I usually would, like, I wouldn't do that, but I'm like, dude, we were over, and she was like, it's fine, but a lot of us don't like that. I'm like, I get it. So that was a time I got spanked. But then also I've had actors say, you are the most easy to work with. I've never had someone, that was so easy. Yeah. So there's some of that going on as well. So checks and balances, man.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, Audu Payton, and Renee's pretty good too. He's got a French last name. He runs a company called Verite Productions. But Renee's really good. I learned a lot from him as well. But Audu was the guy. And of course, everybody at Salami, that like a lot of what I know about engineering and mixing, I learned from guys like Mark Mercado, who's one of the head engineers over at Salami, like how to get the right levels and like setting up your mic and all that kind of stuff.
That would be a fun talk.
Oh, here's the other thing. This is a what do you call it? Pro tip. If you can, get yourself a mobile setup, a good mic, a good DAW like Logic, because and then some people have ISDN lines put into their houses so they can literally do their stuff. Like Josh did all of his Access Hollywood stuff in his car. Like he would show up to his next job like a half hour early, do 3 reads of each line, package them up and email them out. And he'd do them in his car because it was, nice and clean and had his mic set up. So once you go pro, make sure you have a way to be portable, do as many jobs as you can.
Well, see, I have a laptop here, and I cart this laptop over to my mom's. So yeah, being mobile is a good thing.
100%.
I mean,
and my house smells good. My wife is cooking bacon. We're having burgers.
Ooh. Now you make me hungry. Shit.
Sorry, man. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
Don't never say sorry. I do it all the time.
Yeah. Thanks. Appreciate that too. Did you ever run into Andrea Romano?
Yes.
You were working.
Yeah.
I absolutely adore her. I got to interview her at San Diego in 2013, and she's just so sweet to talk to, and she voice casted pretty much every cartoon I loved when I was growing up.
She's amazing. I almost got to work with her.
Yeah.
The only job that I have any sort of like anger over was I was hired as one of the original directors of Teen Titans Go, and we were in pre-production, and the one of the executive producers. I mean, I want to name names because he just pisses me off.
Right.
His buddy. His college buddy had needed a job, and he made a slot by getting rid of me. And the logic behind it was the worst logic ever, because I was hired. I went from Gervais to Teen Titans Go, and the reason they wanted me there originally was I had experience with a Flash crew. I knew how to get good performances out of people. But I myself don't know how to use Flash. I know what Flash can do, but I can't go, it's in that menu, you do this. I can tell you what I want you to do with it. That's what directing does. Like, every director doesn't know how to be a stuntman and a DP and all, and, a special effects guy. They know what they want and they communicate it.
Yeah.
Well, I was let go because I didn't know how to use Flash.
Technical bullshit.
Which was bullshit, but she was the voice director on that. And I was so excited because we were in scripts and previs, and I was going to work with her. And then I was at a convention about 2 years ago. This is right after she had retired. And I went up to her and introduced myself and was like, man, I was dying to work with you, just to watch her because she's fucking incredible.
Yeah, she is.
She's worked, like Josh has worked with her and has said nothing but great things about her.
Oh yeah, I mean she's got a very, very calm tenor in her voice. You can tell that she's used to keeping people calm and happy and moving along. And yeah, it was good. I was curious because you were talking about being at the recording studio and
multiples.
Yeah, I was wondering if she was ever about, because yeah, she's one of my favorites. It's a name I've seen, forever and a day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, the chat, we haven't really said much. Do you guys have any questions out there? Let me scroll back through and see if anybody's got posted anything. What's your favorite cartoon growing up, Dan?
It's tough because they don't age well, right? Like, I remember thinking Voltron was the shit. I remember thinking Transformers was the shit. I remember thinking G.I. Joe was the shit. And my favorite, let's just put it this way, my favorite intro, and it still holds up, is Thundercats.
Yes.
That intro is the best intro ever. There's even a website that you can see it frame by frame. Like they literally, you can, look at how they did it.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, a lot of, like, I'd say another one that held up, but I don't remember jack shit about it. And I started watching it again, and I'm like, man, this is still really good. There were two. There was Macross, Robotech.
Oh yeah.
And then there was what was it called? Over here, it was called Star Blazers, but it was something ship Yamamoto, but it's Star Blazers.
Oh yeah.
And they were kind of like soap operas for little boys, It's like it wasn't just an episode, the mission of the day. It was like this, like, drama
story of character.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was that was one of the first times they tried to introduce that, because they were doing that over in Japan long before we did that over here. What is it? Is it Gatchaman?
Oh yeah, Battle of the Planets.
Battle of the Planets. It's 3 different names.
Yeah, it's such a cool looking concept.
Oh yeah, like just superhero costumes from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Did you ever check out Toy Galaxy?
No.
The YouTube channel? Oh, dude, you gotta. If you like Robotech, they did like a series of videos on the history of Robotech, and it goes into all the different ins and outs and who did what. Like it's a total nostalgia trip of a channel. Toy Galaxy.
Yeah, and I remember as a kid that they had one that was kind of cliffhanger that they never finished. And I'm trying to remember what that was, because this is like 88, 89, and like I remember my friends going, "We're just gonna make it." We're like, how? You're not animators. We'll figure it out. Like they were so upset that they decided that they were gonna make their own. But yeah, I mean, shit, the good old days. And of course, I like Turtles and things like that. Nowadays, I mean, my kids, I can't, fuck, man. There's this thing that like drives me slightly crazy, and like people call it the CalArt style, but it's like, when you have the Loud House, Steven Universe, like a bunch of these cartoons, and you put them in a lineup and they look like they all came from the same universe.
Yes.
That drives me fucking nuts.
I hate that. Like growing up, I remember watching things like Real Monsters or Rocko's Modern Life and Ren and Stimpy. Like I remember watching all of these. I remember watching The Simpsons and being pissed off that Itchy and Scratchy wasn't a show that I could watch.
Right.
Because I was like, this is fucking amazing. Like the mouse just cut his head off and then like wore it around as a Halloween costume, and it was awesome. And like I wanted to watch all of that kind of stuff, but you would look at how Real Monsters was done, and then you would look at how Ren and Stimpy was done, and they, while slightly like they have a 90s aesthetic, they don't look like they came from the same universe. But everything nowadays has that overly round, overly shiny. Everything looks plump. Everything's
it's the part of it is economy. Because the pipeline that they use, some of them are still using Flash, and apparently, like when we did Gervais, and when I did Gervais back in 2010, 2011, we were still using Flash 2004, because there were like from 2004 to 2010, shit was busted. And no, I mean, like because it wasn't a software that was technically made for animators. And I had a friend that worked at trying to remember what they were called before they went to Adobe. It started with a M. Somebody in the chat will know, but it was the company that Flash originated from. They had like Director, they had Flash, and then my friend worked there, and then ended up working. He was still hired on at Adobe and worked in the development team. And I remember saying to him, like, dude, you have to understand that like there is a huge segment of the animation community that uses this, and you need to make a Flash Animate, like a version that is for animators. And then along came Toon Boom, right? Like Toon Boom Harmony, and they kind of took over. But like the point I'm trying to make is that there's a Macromedia. Thank you, Replicant. That's exactly right. I knew it started with an M. The point I'm trying to make in regard to this style is that there's a line economy in your model packs. If their head is a circle, and you have like a 26 mouth chart, so the A, I, O, S, T, H, V, like all the sound at every angle, and then you have eyes and blinks at every angle. As you minimize that style down, you need less, right? So if you had like something that looked like G.I. Joe, that's a lot harder to do because it's more sophisticated style wise. So that's part of it.
But it also, I don't know, to me, it also feels like it's cheapening the industry because, like, yes, I understand that it's difficult, but why is it that this new generation, anytime something is difficult, their first reaction is to rail against it because it takes skill and time and you can't just instantly pick up and be an expert. Like, that's why things suck now. That's why movies are abysmal to watch. That's why so many TV shows are just complete shit and garbage.
There's this, I'll tell you, it's symptomatic of something much larger, and what that is, and this is I'll use music as the discussion, and then you can transport it over to animation, and you can do it over to movies and all this stuff. I grew up in the 70s and 80s. Yes, I'm old, but what I'm saying is, like, let's say there was a song that I really liked called Electric Avenue by Eddie Grant, right? And it came out in 1982. I was 9. And I remember I asked my parents if I could call the radio station to request that they play it, because that was the only way you can hear it is on the radio when you're 9, right?
Right.
And if you wanted the lyrics to that song, good luck. You know, you had to have them, write them down. And then when you bought an album, this is pre-CDs. Like I personally bought my first purchase in 1986. It was a Run DMC cassette. You had to play through, flip it over, and play through. Of course, with CDs, you could kind of, you can skip and all that, but you still were investing. Even in $1989, $20. So, they brought it down to $15, but $15, you had your collection, you valued the fuck out of that thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like you valued it. And now you could have a streaming service. You can go on YouTube, you can hear a song no matter what, anytime, any place, doesn't matter where you are. So suddenly the value of a song, you went from something that was considered a piece of craft to something that's a piece of crap, which is disposable. Music is disposable. And transporting that over to animation, it may not even boil down to the laziness. Maybe whoever got into animation to animate in that style, they're lazy or whatever. But what it also boils down to is they go, we can do 26 episodes on this schedule for this amount and churn out this many seasons and get 26 episodes of Loud House out in the same time it would take to do 4 episodes 10 years ago. So content is becoming disposable. Now that you can stream movies anytime, anywhere, content is now disposable. Less people, obviously we had the pandemic, but less people are going to the movie theaters. Less like TV is disposable. Comics, not so much. Like we always use the comics and boobs thing about, it's better to have the real thing in your hands, because part of comics is, and I argue this, part of comics outside of the tangible aspect of it,
right?
It built into the DNA of comics, at least since the 70s, is the collecting of them.
Yes.
I've got Spider-Man 238, 239, 241, 242. God, fuck, where's that 240? And you have specific
collection.
Yeah. And you have specifics in your mind, right? Like,
right.
I don't have a first printing of Dark Knight #1 because mine is destroyed, but I refuse to buy one online. I have to find it in the wild. Like, I literally have to either find it at a shop or at a show, and I need to hold it and I need to look at it and go, yes, this is the one. That's built in. So comics won't ever be disposable, not in that way. And as long as we make good content and keep it going, then that'll be the case. But let me talk the flip of that. I have almost a terabyte of digital comics in my collection. Like, I have every Spider-Man, every Fantastic Four, like tons of stuff.
Yeah.
I also, like, I wouldn't call myself a pirate, because a lot of the reason I have digital comics is I have all these trades and all this stuff. I want them on my iPad for when I travel, or if I go upstairs, I'm not going to bring 5 long boxes with me. I'm going to just bring my iPad with me, right? But even though I have my iPad and I have Frank Miller's Child's Play Daredevil story arc on my iPad, I still have the trade paperback next to my toilet.
Totally.
Because there's something to turn in the page, and
Well, that's kind of what made me laugh when I was telling you that I was finding all of the Black Flag, and you were like, well, there's the PDF Dropbox link, and I was like, that's fine.
Yeah.
I want this. I want this shit. Like I went so many places, and I found this, and then I found it again. So I now have 2 copies of the Zero.
Yeah.
I have 3 copies of issue 1, but it's because
it's
the
one with a picture of me in it. Am I screaming?
One?
Yeah, I'm like screaming. Like there's a picture of me wrestling a woman in the back.
I know that in 4, the one that I have in 4, there's the picture for your mixtape.
Yeah, but look at that one. Am I screaming in the opening title page?
Opening title page.
Yeah, inside cover. Yeah. So then, if you look at the last page, go to the very end.
Yeah.
There's a picture with Jean-Claude Van Damme, but then above it, I'm oil wrestling a woman.
Oh, wow.
Didn't see that yet, huh?
I haven't opened it yet. Do you see this?
You see the look on my face?
Do you see how happy he is? That is the biggest smile I've ever seen on Dan's face.
Yeah, that was Rob Liefeld's bachelor party.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we went to because he's pretty straight-laced and he didn't want any crazy business, so we convinced him, like, oh, come on, let's just go to oil wrestling then. And then we're all just sitting around, and I'm the guy, like always the guy. When I was younger, I don't do it so much now, but like, dude, you guys are bitches. Like, get in there. Like, fucking I'll do it, So then, I got thrown around by that girl. It was fun.
She was crushing you.
1990.
You're just down. Good. It's fine.
Go ahead. Go ahead if you want to slam me down.
As long as you would like, madam.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Good old days. Yeah, it's weird. The things we remember, like when someone holds up one of my comics, like you had that what if, or it was what if. I'm like, oh, that's the one. That's the one where we did 12 pages in one sitting. Or if you get out the Gen X 97 annual, that's the one we did 18 pages in one sitting. Like it's like the weird memories, it's like that. That was another one. Okay, that one, I wasn't even supposed to work on that one.
Yeah.
And I was asked to draw it in the style of the person that was drawing it. I think it was like Roger Cruz. And I can't, I don't draw that way, but they needed like 4 pages. It turned around in like no time. Like I think I had a day and a half to do 4 pages, which is nothing if you think about the other shit. But in someone else's style, I did a lot of ghosting, like especially during the Heroes Reborn stuff.
Yeah.
So when I started making that list with Mike Green, one of the goals is to get all of your ghosting uncredited shit listed in there too.
Oh, Witchblade.
Oh yeah, trust me, I got one coming. One coming.
Uh-oh, no. Yeah. Avenger
I still
Blade.
love these because the second I saw them, I was like, no, this is it. This can't be it. Was there only the 2 issues? Or
I think there's just the 2. Yeah.
Because I was talking to Mike and he goes, yeah, he did a parody one and I had forgotten the name. I was in the comic book store and it says on here, cutting edge parody, baddest of the bad. And I went, that can't be it. And I was like, it's Image.
That had like Lady Death and like she got burnt to a crisp or something. I'm trying to remember. I mean, this is 25, 26 years ago.
I'll read it and I'll backfill you on what you did.
Yeah. But I also did like some Avengers pages during Heroes Reborn. But Mike Green knows where everything is. Did I work on that? I don't remember that one.
It said there was a thing that said that you did. But
probably.
I couldn't.
Probably.
So this one is the question mark one.
A lot of crazy stuff.
You got all kinds of stuff, dude.
Yeah, we definitely need a better database for this stuff, because the ones that we currently have on the internet, they suck.
I'm working on, well, I'm not working on for everybody. I'm working on one for Frega, and then we'll see what happens after that.
Well, you set the standard so we can have a template to go.
Ictus in the chat says, can we show appreciation for the first CGI show reboot? Audu also worked on, you remember that weird CGI Spider-Man that was on MTV?
Yeah, the one where he was in college. Neil Patrick Harris was doing the voice, right?
Audu and all the rock stars did all the villains. You know, that Audu did that show. That was his show too.
That's awesome.
Crazy.
It's so cool to I don't know, to come across these people that have had their fingerprints on like all these different things that have been a part of my life.
Yeah.
Like when I met
to come across Dan,
like talking about Animaniacs, and then all the DC shows that she did, like of course talking about Mark Hamill and the Joker and stuff like that. It's crazy cool, sound, audio always reminds me of like memories. Like I'll hear something or I'll look at something and I'll hear an audio like an echo.
Yeah.
So I mean,
well, that they say smell is number one and sound is number two as far as evoking memories. That's why they say like Alzheimer's patients, like when they listen to music of a time, it actually activates them a little bit.
Huh. I did not know that. That's I might have to try that with my grandmother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put on some of her jams from her good years, like stuff she likes. Like if my grandpa, if he was still around, I would have put on like Bing Crosby and Glenn Miller for him, Oh,
dude, I love me some Glenn Miller.
So do I. I bought that 20 CD set when it came out way back in the 90s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so good. And then I also I have a subscription on my iPhone to something called Vintage Radio. And it's all old radio shows from the 30s and 40s. We're coming to you from Catalina Island with Glenn Miller and his orchestra. Brought to you by Winston Cigarettes. Yeah.
They literally play like old radio commercials as well.
They play you the whole hour. They don't break it. They just do the whole thing. It's called Vintage Radio. It's an app. And it's like $9 a year.
Yeah.
And they have all the old radio shows too, like This Is the Lone Ranger, They have
the Shadow.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. They have like tons and tons. Let me see if I can pull it up.
I used to love listening to the old, like, I was working in an office downtown, making a 3D representation of downtown St. Augustine, and I was listening to like the Shadow radio programs because I found it at the library. And they even had the ads. Brought to you by Blue Coal. Blue Coal, the cleaner burning coal. Want to stay warm during the winter? This is So yeah, it was a trip.
240 episodes of The Shadow. Here, I'll hopefully we won't get knocked. Hold on.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows.
Yeah, they had 240 episodes. But look at all these different genres. You got adventure, anthology, comedy, crime detective, drama, history, horror, kids and families. And then music is the one, 40 serials, right? So A Date with Duke, Quarter Century Swing, Aladdin Lamp Show. And then let's see, Benny Goodman's Camel Caravan. So here's one from 1938. Here we go. Let me see if it'll play. It's got to download.
Comes the Camel Caravan of Swing with Benny Goodman, the King of Swing, the world's greatest swing band, the Goodman Instrumental Trio and Quartet, and our swing sweetheart, Martha Tilton. This program is presented as a compliment to the men behind the tobacco counters of America. It is made possible by the millions of Camel smokers who appreciate costlier tobaccos and who have made Camel the largest selling cigarette in the world.
1937. This aired August 5th, 1938.
Wow.
And they did it. Yeah. So the vintage radio is fucking great, man. If you want time travel, you know?
Right?
I'll slap that shit on just for moods.
Yes. I love listening to things that will transport me to a different place, like a different time period, especially a time period that I was not alive for.
Yeah.
Like Stephen King's Hearts in Atlantis. Like the way he writes that, it takes me there. I feel like I'm experiencing it because, you know, he lived through all of those eras, but just the way he paints the portrait of like what life was like, you know, just the little details. I love shit like that. So I'm definitely going big on this. So vintage radio, you said, is it, oh, please tell me it's not an iOS only app.
It's iOS, man. Get it on your phone. Why won't you get it on your phone?
If they don't have an Android app, then I'm shit.
I'm sure they do, and I bet you they have something like it. You know what I mean? Because it's basically just like a library of old radio shows, old, you know. I mean, essentially, even the music stuff is old radio shows because that's what they had back then. And that's another good place. You want to learn voice acting? Listen to The Shadow. Mm-hmm. You know, those radio shows were everything before television.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, they didn't have the ability to you know, do video. So, you know, hey Skits, what up, man?
Skits is in the house. What up, Skits?
Hello, Skits, good to see you, buddy. Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, man. He just posted this really cool picture where over on this side there's like a guy and there's like this cool bridge and trees. I'm getting called for dinner, so I got like maybe 2 minutes.
Oh,
I just heard dinner. But yeah, the piece that he posted where he says, "Wait until I paint it." That thing is gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
People need to check out Skits on Indiegogo if they get a chance.
Absolutely. I love all of his pencils and the emotion and like everything he's got in it. So cool.
Pure heart.
So cool. So cool.
He's good, Paige. Well, then we'll go ahead and wrap this up. I wanted to make sure we went at least an hour, and answered all of the questions that I had. I didn't see any in the chat. Shay, did you have any? Did you have a quick question? Okay.
I honestly can't think of it.
Yeah, if there's any that people that either watching this now or are going to catch this at a later time, pop those questions in the comments.
Yep.
You know, and make sure you hit that like button. And if you're not subscribing, you go over down in this corner, you hit subscribe and you slide it up to all.
Yeah.
That's right.
Those notifications. Yeah.
And check out Fraga's new channel, his backup. It is FRAGABOOM.
FRAGABOOM.
Yeah.
Right.
We gotta rebuild him back up so he can start doing his thing again.
In every single way, man. 3 days from now, I will be rebuilt again. Physically.
Shall be repaired.
Thank goodness. That'll be so good.
Yeah. And then there's going to be like 5 days where I'm just going to be a whiny little bitch.
Oh, dude. I watched a whole bunch of anime when I had my first hernia surgery.
Yeah.
Like I did Akira, Ghost in the Shell, Vampire Hunter D, like all from Blockbuster. So I had to get up and hop over to the VCR.
How long did you hurt for? They said 3 to 5 days.
Yeah, I mean 3 to 5 days. Maybe plan on feeling a little tender up to 7.
Okay.
Like hurting, like sneezing will hurt. Don't cough.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
And
I heard that they give you pain pills that get you constipated, so it hurts to poop and you can't push because you're stitched up. But they also give you laxatives so that anyway, TMI. Ichthys, I'll be streaming more. I saw him mention something about streaming, so I'll be streaming more.
Yeah, he misses your live stream.
Yeah,
they're coming back. They're coming back in a big way.
Hey, Vinny, thanks for popping in.
What up, Vinny?
Just getting ready to end it so Fraga can go eat dinner. But I appreciate you all showing up. Also, check out Shay's channel. She is so close to monetization. Let's do it.
Red Valkyrie, yo, get it. Get it.
Yo.
And also on Ethan Van Skyver's channel tonight, they're going to be doing an art auction. So if you guys are interested in any Masters of the Universe pages, I will be getting rid of them there.
Oh,
yeah,
that's some good shit.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. Well, then we are going to we're going peace out. Thanks for shutting by. Later.